You are a core
Yep.
update, Clint. You're the core update, dude.
Is there a core update today?
They claim that it's done, but yeah, no,
I'm just fucking with you.
it's been constant, right?
It's been continuous.
It's been ongoing, and it's been damn interesting. Really interesting. Perpetual update state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty sick. So there's a lot of people talking about duplicate content like today and over the last couple days, and I was looking at people that were talking about how they're reporting people that are using their content, and the conversation came up why that would be, and I think it might be an interesting thing to talk about for people out there, and kind of look at the ethics around business with content, and maybe how Google does use duplicate content, and how they recommend sites and how they recommend things, and if there's a difference between what we're doing and them. So, I mean, have you guys ever been in the situation where someone is taking your content and utilizing it, and it's causing issues for your business at all? Like, at all ever?
I've had my entire agency website duplicated and put up on other people's. Like they scraped my website and literally put the exact same thing up.
Right.
And this has happened numerous times over 7 years. It has not affected my traffic. Like I didn't like it because they're pretending to be, they were even using like my videos, like my face and my stuff.
So they were stealing your identity kind of fraudulently, not just taking
to be me.
Yeah.
Right.
I would think that would happen a lot, like while you're in OMG and stuff like that.
Yeah, the more public you wind up being.
Back when he was prettier.
Back when I was prettier and younger.
In the
That's when
and I had more.
I didn't know that you saw my website, Fletch. I'm kind of bummed you figured out what I was doing back then, man.
Yeah,
someone probably sent it to him.
Well, you know what?
No,
I don't know if I caught you, but I caught somebody.
That's funny.
No, but and frankly, I didn't notice it. Somebody else brought it to my attention each of the times it happened. There's like, hey, dude, your website's now over on this URL.
Yeah, I've noticed it with Just Lux a lot. We had a lot of duplication, right? We had a ton of duplication, people just taking the whole site and trying to rank off the content. And I mean, I had writers that were pumping out 1,000 posts a month, and they were just dropping stuff like crazy, right, on the site, and dropping other content that's higher quality writing. We also had a lot of situations because of the type of content and our connections, where larger websites that were stronger and had more authority would actually take the feed, and they would publish the feed before we were indexed, and that would actually be a problem. That's the only time I've experienced actually this here. I meant to put up this one, but we're going to go to Clint's there in a second. It was for a presentation. It was fun.
Yeah,
I've had that happen quite a bit with landers. You're like, that lander looks familiar. They didn't even switch out the logo, like in the the high comp niches and stuff like that.
One of the tools that we have to, I say, combat that, but like I said, I haven't really experienced tons of negative results, but I can see it potentially.
So what it did for us, because this was at a time, and actually Mueller has said this recently, that sometimes if someone uses your content as an exact copy and we think it's a better source, that we will use the better source rather than the original. And they will do that based on what they determine as, we'll call it authority in the market that you're in, right? Yeah. A seed, the knowledge group that you're in as well. If an authority grabs your content
and DAT wins on either of those fronts, then it would make sense.
I would even go so far as to say, as we're starting to be in times where they have the ability to look at, I'm not saying that they're making actual calculations everywhere like this. They have the ability to look at the usage metrics of a website and determine that this site is a better quality site for people. Yeah. And so we're going to rank this site instead of the original site. And, and that's why, it changed the way I delivered my feeds. Like we wrote a script that now would hold back our feed until it was distributed and indexed in and credited to the website that we were on, because if someone grabbed it at the time, it would actually cause us not to actually have the credit for it.
So you were at least first to the punch.
Yes, and it was a different world back then, because like the stuff we're thinking about now, it wasn't a factor. You know, it was out there, they were talking about it, but some of the stuff they're looking at and they can see now is completely different than it was back then.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people could make use of, and you know, you guys probably have more experience with it than I do, but is the use of canonical in your source code. So if somebody knows about everything, you're at least going to get credit for the fact that you are the original version of that material, unless they go and write scripts to get around that.
Yeah, I would never take someone's meta markup.
No, right? Like,
well,
but
it's easy to do though.
Yeah, it is easy, and a lot of people do it that way. They are lazy, and we can have an argument if taking other people's content is lazy or not, but you know, what do you do with that content, right? Well, let's look at it from like Google. Google is not really, you know, they do search. They have a search product, and they use information retrieval in one shape or form, but they really come out and they recommend content to people. They curate content and they deliver it based on, you know, data that they train and metrics that they collect, right? So if they're doing that, what is wrong, or do you see anything wrong if I go out and I pull content from other sources and I create a unique piece of content from the content I pulled from other sources?
Well, every piece of scientific and academic literature does that.
So where's the line though? Like from the ethics standpoint, and I'm not gonna, I think people know where I stand on this.
The citation.
We know where you stand on this, Mike.
Right. If you claim to
Speaking of standing, you were able to stand up after last
Joshua Fletcher, and you didn't write it, or you didn't pay to have someone ghostwrite it for you, then you've crossed a line where you've infringed on someone's individual property rights.
Yeah, and so what that's what's very interesting is where the just because where's the line where it comes, like if a human wrote it versus or a human curated it versus, you know, technology curated or scripting curated or modules.
Then you've introduced the problem with Elon Musk's
right.
You know, Neuralink. It's like, okay, well, who wrote it? Like property rights really is the line. And I don't know exactly where that line. It's not like a scalpel line, like some gray area there. But you know, what's these guys? It has been a unique piece of content written.
Copy paste.
No, and here's the thing. I would even say that we can have there was unique internet content, but I guarantee you a lot of that content was just rewritten from another data source, right?
Well, with AI coming into play so much more for content generation, it's like you're at least like, even if we say we wrote it, where did our ideas come from?
Exactly.
They came from other people, and we just
the outline for content these days is right. And everybody goes to the same place for the outline for content that they want to have ranking. Mm-hmm. And that's even the tools that we use. Yeah, like even the tools that we use are looking at the same stuff, and they're telling us, okay, this is what everybody else is doing.
That, and it's self-fulfilling, and it will continue to do that, I think, no matter what they do, honestly, because when the data source is go ahead.
That I want to introduce as a concept, right? And so a lot of the tools that we use are kind of correlation tools, right? Mm-hmm. Cora, right? That's the first four letter, that correlation. So when we're looking at correlation, we can understand what Google values already that has been produced.
Exactly.
But we don't necessarily know if there's something that they would value more that just has not been produced yet. Right, and that's the correlation versus causation.
Well, and that's why there should be a process in SEO and in marketing that takes this into consideration. And we've been talking about that. It's going to be a fun, you know, September, October, because of this live event where we're going to be going over these kind of things into a system, right? You know, Clint's going to come out and do that with us. Like, there's going to be some really good, bright minds. Leo from Keyword Cupid's coming out, I believe.
I will not be one of them.
What's that?
I will not.
I won't be one of them either, dude, so don't worry. It might be Clint and maybe a couple.
We're curating everything at the event. So
I'll wear my headlight.
Curation.
Like I have a bright mind. How does that work? Yeah.
But the thing is that it works, and this is why I'm saying, like, when the source that has all the information makes the information publicly available, and then they are actually providing the best manner and the best way to actually be a source of that information, it just creates a feedback loop, and it just creates a system that can be used to enhance business, right? And it just does by nature. There's just nothing I just don't think you can do anything about that.
Well, and this is one of the things you brought up a week or two ago when we ran this. Like, we were talking about like some of the things I'd like to help people understand better about humans and how they make decisions is, okay, if everybody's got essentially the same content, how are you going to win? It's to notice the things that are different that actually get a human more engaged.
Well, and that's the thing, man. It's context, right? This whole theme this year for this event for the members and everything is context. And we did the NFGP thing as kind of like a poke to see where people were with context marketing and personalization and delivery. And because we're in a world right now where there's not just Google is trying to determine what empathy is, and they want to deliver things for people the instant they need it. They're searching for pizza in the morning or in the afternoon, predictive search. In the morning, are they looking for a recipe? In the afternoon, are they looking for lunch, right? And based on the way people do queries, based on the way people interact, there's all this behavior that we can, analyze and collect data on, that Google is trying to like perfect how to actually determine what that person needs right then. I think the way I could sum it up is they want to be able to analyze true intent, meaning empathy. They want to be able to detect, like use empathy to detect what a person needs at a given time, is a way to put it, right? And because of that, if we follow what they're doing and we continue to follow along that, we have the ability to do that as well. We can't compete. We can't gather the data that they have. We can't make the calculations. We can get to the data sets that they make public on GitHub. We can get to Colab and all these things that they make public, but we can't get to the core workings of this. The closest we can get is by what is actually delivered in the forefront. And what's delivered in the forefront is the empathy portion. But the thing that people don't pay attention to is that now all these people, they also have another part of their like persona or profile, which is their digital assistant or their device, right? And their device uses AI to help deliver things when that person wants it. And so as the device is trained based on the user's input, their voice, their clicking, like whatever they're doing, now the device knows what to deliver when. And this is the direction that this kind of entity of Google is taking and will go down the road of. And there's no question about it, because that's what has to happen. There's going to be something like 8 billion AI assistants in 2023, I think it is. It'll be like 8 billion across the world. And so it's important to remember that there's like two aspects. There is absolutely a technical aspect that we can take advantage of, and we can scrape data, we can play with, but then we also have to pay attention to the fact that there's a person behind it that has a life, that was in a car accident or is buying a home. And to be able to get to that person, we have to hit that AI and that device and make sure that not only does search happen, but the device is becoming what is being optimized for. And then it needs to be analyzed and determine what to optimize for and which contact and which context to push out to that person. And so I think that what I've seen this year, they've gotten, a step closer to doing that. And it's pretty exciting because it just means that we're on the right path, I think. But with that, there's a huge problem and a huge thing that I think is going to become more of an issue, and we'll see policy around it potentially, is the fact that copyright, that fair usage and how that data is used, is going to, I mean, they're already doing it with the privacy stuff, and the cookies. They actually just extended, Google said that they're going to wait another year before they eliminate third-party cookies from Chrome. So they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to rush to it, but it's a fun time to watch SEO and everything going on around delivery, because there's a ton of shit going on. Have you noticed any changes in SERPs around like tied into the content or the actual organic with image and video and anything like that lately when you've been doing any queries or looking around?
Well, from my perspective, video is a really interesting place to start because it's certain types of video specifically, like it's a human talking about something that they at least have put together, right? Whether it's off the cuff or they have a presentation or it's a voiceover or whatever it might be. Like the engagement of video and the amount of video consumed versus written content, like that trend, those lines crossed long ago, and video is beginning to really far outpace as far as just bandwidth and bytes that are transferred and consumed. Like video is something that we should all be paying much more attention to because it's being consumed so much more now than it was a year or two ago. And presumably, and this is assumption, right? Thesis, we could test it. It's about this sort of thing that humans want to connect with another human and be able to the EAT another human.
Well, on that note, really quickly, I was on a call the other day with a couple people and there was no video. We were talking and there was no video. It was going a little long. I'm like, man, I'm turning the video on. I can't do this anymore, staring at a blank screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there, absolutely there.
And so our biological entity, like there is something to wanting to be able to get the body language and look at somebody's eyes and all that kind of thing. And for my 2 cents and $2 where I'm going to invest it, it's going to be in understanding what moves people. Right.
That's where, that's why Brad and I were talking, and we're really looking forward to what you do this year with like people and the actual people behind it, because those people, like in an optimization process, that optimization process really can't start effectively until you understand the people there. Like you have to start with the people because the end result is the people, right?
Isn't that the promise? Isn't that the promise of one of these things anyways, is to connect us with each other?
Right. Exactly.
And
less connected than ever.
Exactly. You go to a restaurant, everybody's staring at the palm and they're not looking at each other. Like,
I did that before phones. I'd just sit there.
Stare at your palm.
I don't go out.
Hello.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, how much more are marketers in general? I mean, the clients of ours and anybody going to be way ahead of the curve if they, are able to maximize that. So again, this is like repurposing a piece of content. You have the content piece written. How hard is it to take out your phone and just go over the at least the subheadings and just kind of put a few things in your own word? Yeah. And you put it right there. And just like to Fletch's point earlier, man, you have different elements on the page that automatically helps, with your ranking. But a video obviously is going to keep people around longer. You're going to increase that engagement, but also you're going to build that authority and trust almost immediately. You're going to have credibility. You're going to have that rapport with your audience, where 99 out of 100 people in any space are not doing this. And so this is really the area where I think most like agile small marketers that are running businesses that are trying to compete against, let's say Home Advisor or Angie's List. And this is what I have my clients do that are, just like running local businesses, pull out the phone.
5 or 6 years ago, my mass page sites were automatically becoming a native iPhone app or a native Android app, right? So I see the things that are being sold in like certain markets. And when you touch on like these things, like I think what it is, there is a whole bunch of people that pay attention to this, but there are also like market segments, and Clint and I were kind of talking about this, that market segments, like just they focus on little pieces, and that's why it's very important to focus on the whole, like the holistic, I hate that word now because it got used in a couple places, but like the whole aspect of how marketing works, and that like SEO and the tech aspect is like it's literally like one piece of what has to happen, because I think people would be very surprised of what I can see and what I have data on and what they are doing with things like video and AI right now in Google. Like it's very, very interesting, the things that they are capable of doing and that they are doing at this point.
Well, pulling out emphasized little snippets of the conversation and putting that in the SERPs, and then you can, select whatever part of the video you want to hear that has to do with a particular phrase or something like that. Like the video that we launched, last week or 2 weeks ago that we looked at, Mike, or that you did. And, in the SERPs, you've actually got a video with little, like you can click on a certain snippet and hear
chapterized version of the full video.
Exactly.
They've been tweaking almost. Right. They one of the things with this core update that I think people haven't been talking about is all the other updates that have been happening like all year that aren't being talked about everywhere, that are like named, and you've got the director of search talking about these things constantly, and they're literally saying we're rolling it out. 7 months ago, 8 months ago, they said, we've already got something that's kind of incorporating BERT, but it's like 1,000 times more freaking powerful. And like they don't see the connections between the different aspects of marketing that are being pulled into one thing, and it has to go this way. The model has to change because of the goal of delivering like what a person wants right when they want it. So like making sure that SEO is conducted based around that journey and that context is extremely important, and that's why I've always been a big proponent of like cloaking and personalization, is because when you understand the user, you collect data on the user, you can now start to deliver an experience to the user that is optimal for them and their conversion process, while still using the technology and optimizing for the actual like assistant and the AI, or in this case the recommendation or delivery like curation engine that is Google or Yahoo, Yandex, anywhere, wherever you're at, and it's just very interesting how the things that have traditionally worked for SEO, you start to see this pathway that they're taking to that like endpoint of empathy and understanding what a user needs at that moment.
And like one of the things that I brought up is like considering, SEO could be search engine optimization. It could also be social engineering optimization. Like there can
absolutely
be a driving force behind the powers that be that are driving toward a certain thing. But what you mentioned there really brought something to mind, which is that Google is really a curation engine.
Oh, it is 100%.
It's taking all the stuff it knows about and saying, "Hey, here's the stuff you should probably know about," right?
Or you can call them a suppression engine, because there's things that they, plenty of things that they purposely.
The other side of the same coin, right?
Well, look at Facebook and Reddit. I mean, all these things that do deliver content. Reddit I really like because of the way they deliver content and some of the karma system, which yes can be manipulated very easily, and we played around in that a lot. But Facebook had like lofty goals. They wanted to deliver content, or whatever their freaking mission was when they began, unless it was just let's go get money. But people have these like intentions at some point, and it's the whole don't be evil thing. Was it ever really like we want to be helpful, or was it always like I want money, right? Like where does that line change, or is it from the beginning?
When you've got investors, you have to take shareholder well-being into account. So
it's actually illegal if you don't, right? I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually a crime.
It is. Absolutely.
Don't consider the financial or fiduciary responsibility you have running the company if you're public.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't trade publicly traded stocks is just that it morally doesn't have, it has to adhere to a different set of morals than I personally keep.
I have no morals, so I can go anywhere.
I can vouch.
That's the Brad Pitt thing from Fight Club. I'm free in all the ways you are not.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
Ties back into The Big Short too, which he's in, right? Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember back when we were inside of Freebase, we were seeding Freebase and seeding that database, before it was still open. We were seeding this with e-commerce terms back then, so that certain entities were associated with certain markets, and those things are still there, dude. Like that we were pushing into this data.
You had direct access to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it was funny because there was e-commerce terms and stuff that were just destroying it with that kind of thing back then. And like I know that I talked about like schema and semantic markup, and I like to push people's buttons and say this is nothing or whatever. But there has been a clear path for a very long time that they're taking, and it's interesting to see how quickly stuff started to swing around in a different direction with Prakabar Raghavan, the director of Google Search, right? And you have to do the hand motions or it doesn't count, bro.
I did. You won't watch it.
And so it's been a really cool, I would say even since, forever, but since Medic, and then since like last year when Dude was hired and some of the stuff that they started talking about after that, it's been very interesting to watch what they've started rolling out and in the SERPs and everything. So the duplicate content thing is very interesting, and it's going to be interesting to watch because I personally don't have any issue with it at all. And I do think that creating something that fulfills the I look at what we do as a tool, literally to deliver people what they want. Yeah, exactly. I'm a tool. Delivering what people want. It's the whole quality versus not quality. And in some cases, like the crappiest looking website is actually the best choice, right? And so the crappy looking website is the quality over the well-designed website. So it's kind of one of those things where if there's data available and I can give a product to people that's better than other people, and I'm going to utilize data that I pull off of somewhere else to do so, am I doing something wrong or not, right? I don't know.
Well, I think when you're talking about duplicate content too, I think what people have typically considered that to be was something that you literally copy it. You don't really do much to it. You paste it on another website. You try to rank it for the exact same query. And as much as of that is true, if you take the same piece of content, and let's say it's for a local, like a local site that you've got several different locations, you can take that same piece of content and put it on a different page that's ranking for a different market or a different, like a slightly different query. So the query is a little bit different. The content could be the exact same. Maybe all you've changed is a couple little things in there as far as like city name, but that content is gonna do it's gonna perform.
Bingo.
Well,
Bingo.
Okay, so let's think about this and just run a scenario really quickly with content. Okay, so Mona Lisa, right? It's a painting, right? So if somebody types in Mona Lisa
of Michelangelo's boyfriend,
or could be. Now we're getting into the speculative.
You're right.
But regardless, there are probably millions of those examples of a picture of the Mona Lisa. It's not the actual Mona Lisa. It's a picture of the painting, right? So if somebody types that in, do they want the picture of it, or do they want to know about the painting, right? And this is where the human comes in with their intent, and this is why the individualized search results start coming into play. Like, so if the content you deliver is not just a picture, but then you also talk about when the painting was created, where it hangs, when it's been on display,
what's the rule for
kind of
like
thing.
past a certain period you can use it? Disney's trying to stop it now. Yeah, because you can use the Frankenstein.
Like Tarzan is no longer the novel Tarzan. You can go grab for free. There's my free.
Yeah, Edgar Rice.
Tarzan, Mickey Mouse, any of that stuff. I mean, Disney made a living off of it initially. I mean, the first original movie, wasn't it like Lion King or something?
That was like Dumbo or Cinderella.
Dumbo was old school. Cinderella is like an old story and stuff.
That
movie came out way before Lion King, but the original storyline that Disney had to come up with
old
from
fables
start to finish.
And stuff. Yeah. So they were written originally long enough ago where everybody can use it now for whatever.
Yeah, but now they're trying to stop everyone from using the Mickey Mouse,
but
they're still making
just
money
getting
on it.
back into that scenario, when you start to think about it, it's like, okay, you got a piece of content that's on the internet 1 million times or more, right? Most of those pages are probably indexed, right? If you go type in Mona Lisa right now and go to images, you're gonna see
dude,
tons of it. Like, so
lots of link opportunities out there, aren't there?
Duplicate content not going to get you results. Well, there's a clear example of times when it is certainly not a problem. And then you start building on different scenarios to start to understand where those thresholds are and what's getting ranked higher than other things. That's how you build out your understanding of how Google is going about understanding importance. And importance, it has as a proxy, as the goal of the algorithm it uses to say, as a curator, this is what's important, this is what you should look at, right? But it all comes back to its understanding of the human. So if, Mike, from where he is in Idaho, and we both pull out our phone and we go to Google and we type in 3 letters, we're going to get different auto-suggest results based on, whether or not we've been, masking identity or whatever else it might be. Like Google is really doing a lot.
Is that what the mustache is for?
Yeah, I'm trying to change up the so I can appear to be a lot of different people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's for the free trials. You have to keep, switching it up.
Hey, I'm a different guy now. Yeah, I'm changed. I no longer identify with the person I was last week.
I'm Fletcher Joshua.
Yeah. But just when you see that, consider the implications of it, which is that you don't rank number 1 necessarily. You rank number 1 for specific people who typed in a specific.
Oh no, dude, it's funny. Like, this is why
you might not rank number 1 for.
No, and it's not location only. It's not this only. Like, they have the Chrome user experience report. They have the Nielsen. They understand. Edge is built on Chromium. Brave is built on Chromium. Like, you can go to their terms of service and they tell you, like, we're going to collect this data to personalize your search, whether you're logged in or not. We don't care. You can opt out of certain things, but they still will collect the data if you dig through what they're doing. And so what they have been doing for years is building profiles of people, mm-hmm. and they build profiles. I mean,
I'm surprised I don't get more emails for boner pills.
Right? They built, like, I mean, how many times have you noticed on your phone when you've had a conversation with someone and it's something you've never queried before, and the next time you hit in there, you get an advertisement on a certain website or certain websites or on certain apps for what you discussed with someone else that was not a query on your phone, nor was it through your phone. It happens, right? So if that can happen for advertising, what's Google doing for customizing search for people? I mean, come on, it's not hard to get to this.
The more they're able to do that, the better their search is, and I mean, the more users they're going to have, keep. Yeah, and the more ad revenue.
Absolutely, that's what their business is, right?
I hate when I accidentally search in another search engine because, like, I have a browser open that, like, is.
Oh, because people go, why do the results suck so much in this search? Well, where do you search? Oh, I search in Google. Maybe they have data on you. I mean, come on now. But yeah, no, it's interesting because it's fun to watch them roll it all out. It's fun to watch them incorporate.
Like think about this. This is one of the things, right? So if you're logged into, say you're using Chrome and you're logged in, and you do a search, right? A long time ago, they would even highlight where you've clicked before.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, think about that. That was,
dude, there's a patent
time ago.
There is a patent from like 2011, 12 or 13 about like that. And I mean, we talked about some of this stuff in the membership, but if you search through certain things that certain people involved in the company now that were at other places on what their theories are and what their opinions are, what patents they have freaking been inventees on, like you understand like where they've been crafting this for years. I mean, years. Like the latest stuff, like if you look at what they've decided that they want to do with it directly ties into something called Lens, and how that can relate to organic search and how it can provide a UI that is a beautiful full experience for long form questions and various things, right? And you can go out and find this data if you want to, that this is what they talk about if you just do a couple quick searches, right? And so when we know the direction that they want to take, we see data from our campaigns, and then we look at the inventions that they've had and some of the research papers that they've cited, like a picture starts to be painted where, okay, this is what they want to do. So this could be happening here. This could be happening here. The data says this. Let's use this for now while it's working and go do something else. And that's what I think is really cool about our industry is that there is definitely a map that I think is the optimal map to like kind of follow. I mean, we can't know what the hell's really going on, but it's fun. I enjoy it. And I think it's going to be a fun year at NFG with everybody because the tools that we've been developing and the tools that people around us have been developing and the system.
Mike, I get added to a folder right before this. I'm like, I got something for, what's the shared folder? Oh, that's the tool. I was like, oh, it's finished? It's never finished. Is it functional?
I said it's never finished. Dude.
I'm like, never fucking mind.
Can I start it and drive it for a while?
Yeah, you're
I know what you meant. I was being a dick. Yeah. But that was funny. No, I just decided to organize it.
Is it functional though?
Yeah, it's functional, but we are breaking it.
Okay, you need me to try and break it? Is that why you said? He sends me stuff with no context.
We're gonna break it. But for the event, like, I mean, you've got. This is why we made such a big talk about the process in the members area, and we're gonna answer. It's a good time to answer Soursop his question right here about Keyword Cupid, because like from what I understand about Leo's like concepts and theories that he does, I think he's spot on, and there's a reason why I think this is the way to start grouping right now. And we'll go into it more at the event and stuff. But you can, in the export right there, dude, just export and go off of the green borders and the dotted lines in the all silos sheet, or in the big silo sheet, you've got the 100% green merge cell. That merge cell right there groups the pages together. So the sheet is structured like that.
Two spaced rows, and the stuff that's within those boundaries, those are grouped together. Like this is I've been talking to Leo today. He's rolling out some new features that I'm pretty excited about. So, but this is the nature of what I do. Like this is how I make my money, using my understanding of humans and starting to profile those things, then building keyword research and putting it into that model. And like, for instance, with each client that we have, we do a profile on them to help match them with actual humans. And those humans have different search queries that come out of that. And different
100%, dude.
So it depends on the client you have as to what data you're going to feed the model. Because if you put bad data in the model, the model's going to kick out bad data. But as far as if you put good data in, the process that we're working through now is understanding how to take the data that comes out of that AI and then get it onto a page or onto a website, entire website, also considering where the website used to be. So if you've got a website that's ranking for a lot of good stuff, you don't necessarily want to mess that up. How are you going to keep this stuff you had without losing it and add more?
Well, see, it all ties directly into what Corey said when I said bingo about a piece of content in another place, and cannibalization is based on intent and context. And when you understand this stuff and how you can actually come after different profile and personas on the same site, like you can come after them from a different angle. However, there are, and this is what the system is like, this is what we're talking about in September and October in the event, is that there's a time to use a single site, there's a time to use multiple sites, and this is what we will be going over, and that system to implement all of that through. And that is exactly where it's nice to see what they've done since we launched the NFG personalization stuff like a year ago or whatever it was, to see that they've kind of rolled around to where we thought it was going to go. So it is time, and building that persona to make people really clear on. I know it doesn't sound cool SEO, but there's some AI I want to talk to you about, Fletch, about that actually builds the personas that I think is very interesting that we need to look at for the event and for business. But but once you understand that person and what their need is and what their pain, it's actually painkiller. I'm going to call it painkiller. Like, this is coming back to like where Russell Wright was back when Network Empire. Painkiller content, man. Finding the pain in the industry and delivering the answer to that, like that context right there, we'll call it, right? you can do it in many ways. And once you have the content delivery like system, you add in the context delivery system where now you can customize what they're actually interacting with on an individual page for a different problem and a different way they came to the website based on their behavior, based on referrer, based on all these things that you can still collect even if cookies are gone and they start pushing cookies out. One thing we need to make sure that people understand is that first party data, like what we do is a method of gathering information on users, delivering a product or an ad to a user, and gathering permission from that user to market to them in other manners. Like, so implicit versus explicit permission from users is all ties into what we're doing here with SEO. And so I think they're making our job easier, guys. Honestly, like the more I see, like I know it sounds all big and complicated, but the better they get at this, the more simple it becomes marketing again. And it's like, you know, I know what the user needs. I know how to give the user, see the user, advertise to the user, then convert the user. And that's what they're developing for us is tools.
I mean, if they're getting better at it, that means their instructions are becoming more clear, meaning it is going to get easier because if you know what someone wants, then you can give it to them.
It's getting easier and easier.
Guess. Yeah. Just like a woman.
What makes them easier and easier?
I have no money. I don't know.
Alcohol.
Well, there you go. Both. Yeah.
We're gonna, you know, I want to do some questions and stuff, but I just was very interested in people's thoughts. If anyone has input on any of the Duke stuff,
well, I'll piggyback kind of on that. You know, whenever there's like these massive updates that come out in the industry, we tend to have a lot of guys and gals that have jumped in and they're like, oh, I'm gonna start an SEO agency or I'm gonna start doing my own stuff, and then an update comes along and some of your stuff tanks, and then you get an invitation to do some other kind of internet marketing and you jump ship and now you're doing Facebook, and then their algorithm changes and then your cost per acquisition goes up, or you get an ad campaign shut down, or just there's all these different things.
All I do anymore is work on TikTok. Hopefully,
I've seen those, Brad.
I know.
Yeah,
you're my one subscriber, Corey, and I appreciate you.
My wife actually asks me to play him for her, so
she needs a good laugh.
I think what's cool, man, is like we've got, you know, Corey, you do a lot of PPC, Fletch. You know, you're doing a whole bunch of cool stuff with content and journey and stuff like that. People don't realize that, like, the way I see Keyword Cupid, it's not an SEO tool. It's not it's a research tool. It's a PPC tool. It does SEO grouping. It does different things, man. It's not. Yes, it's newer. Yes, it's not been around for 12 or 13 years. But the growth of what's happening with Google right now, there needs to be a place where the tools are growing as well to match so the research and the systems can match what Google is doing. And that's what I think is cool about his direction, man.
And again, because when Google's an algorithm, you can kind of poke holes in the algorithm with another algorithm and figure out what it's looking for. But going back to my point that guys, this is not the time to jump ship because the stuff sounds so complicated. The way Mike talks about it, the way Mike talks about it, sometimes I play jazz and wait for his, and then I'm like, okay,
I don't
understand, but that's
I've got monkeys. Ting, ting.
Yeah. So, but that's why it's important to get, because when you can distill it down the way that Mike does, and you know the way that people are going to at the event, to make a very complex idea and distill it down into something very digestible and easy to understand, then that's what makes it worthwhile. That's why we stick with the industry. That's why the ups and downs, it only does get easier.
What are you going to do? Go get a job and make less money for a lot more work? That's how
like one of the things I kind of like, I'll keep harping on, like the human side of it. It's like, if you don't understand that, you're going to screw up SEO, pay-per-click, social media marketing, content marketing, email marketing. You're going to screw all those up like that. Quite literally. Yeah. We can do one of these for me, Brad.
No, I was doing the monkey boy.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was a
I can't get Brad to do anything. So anyway, the for me, the foundation is starting at a proper place as far as how meta you can go or proto you can go.
I'm super metro.
What this whole thing is super metro. Sexual.
When you're not wearing the hat, you're metro. When you are, you're not.
No,
I don't know if that's freaking metro, bro.
Fix your hair.
You need to wash your hair, I think. But anyway, like if you start there, these tools can absolutely help you quite simply. I say simply, but they're incredibly effective at, like, when you use them without the understanding of the human behind it, it looks confusing. It looks like there's all sorts of stuff that's like, why would this be here? And this kind of stuff. And it's, if you don't take that step back and get at like what the people are that are doing these searches, or the people are who are noticing and clicking on ads and all these kind of things. That's why segmentation of ad, PPC stuff is so important. Like, you're segmenting it because this ad works for people who are in this typecast right over here. This other ad works very well for people who are typecast over here. SEO, it would be you'd be remiss to believe that SEO does not do the same thing.
No, it's segmentation, man. All of it is segmentation. I mean, if you look at it's about understanding who wants this product or what their pain is, and then segmenting these people into groups, and then creating pieces of content and ads and all this crap and pages, whatever, that tailor to these different segments and these different personas and profiles of users, right? I mean, it's traditional marketing, essentially, it's psychology,
There's a lot more data available to us.
Yes, we exactly.
Use AI
which can be a hindrance at times, in my opinion. Like, it can get overwhelming.
I say a lot more on the theoretical side of just like really trying to understand what it's doing. And then if I can understand what it's doing or purports to do, it's like, well, then I can better use this tool. It's like if I was always trying to use a hammer as a way to start a fire with a spark, it's like, well, that might not be the best way to use it.
That's the only tool I need when fixing a car.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, you can take the sites that have this, like, Brad calls it that 25% loss on the core updates. That's just like this, boop, like over the last 2 years, they're just going from up here down here with their website traffic, right? And it's because they don't understand what the query wants at that time. And by the query, I mean the group, the segment of people that are doing those searches, right? And once you realize, you go back to a tool that can go help you analyze what those people want, what the data is saying right now, like what that Google is displaying, then you can go back in and re-optimize. And I had the same conversations with Leo a while ago. I'm like, when are you going to put in this URL to cluster match stuff so we can fix sites like without any additional work, right? And there's some interesting things that I'm working on with like on-crawl and ingestion from Keyword Cupid that can do that kind of stuff. So like, there's just a lot you can do once you understand. Like, I don't like people ask about an audit tool. Like, how do I do an audit? What tool should I use for an audit? My requirements are, it's got to crawl the website, and it's got to be able to pull in the usage data from like Search Console or your analytics, correlate that to your pages and all the technology behind it, right? And it always comes back to the tech. You need to look at the tech, but you have to understand how it's affecting the user, like the user and the experience there. So there's a lot of clues in like the page user experience update and all that crap, but it comes back to the simplicity of SEO of like, make sure you're not talking about the wrong thing in the right place, and just make sure you clean up the site, make sure you clean up the pages, and you do all of that right and make the right connections, and it becomes really simple, and then it can be it's simple enough to be systemized, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like Corey said, it's just marketing. I mean, how do you sell something? You present something that someone wants to buy, don't sell to people that don't want to be sold, unless you're Cardone. Then you're like, zero, what does he say? Zero interest is still interest. No, it's not. But, whatever.
I would call that a contradiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, once you get somebody to want something, and then help them justify it. There's your conversion.
Sell me this pin.
But that's why they're there, is because they want you to convince them to
if they were already
buy
there,
something.
They got to your page. Why did they? How did they get here? They want something.
They want you to convince them. That's your job, is to convince them to buy something that they need and that will improve their life. 100%.
Yeah, they're looking for a reason not to buy at that point.
Yep.
And so we have a moral duty to scrape people's content and create pages that help people.
There's a bunch of idiots out there who did some good stuff, but not enough to get over the threshold where everybody's life is better. Yes.
Yep. No, it's interesting, man. It's going to be a fun journey. Again.
Hey, Sour's last question. Do you interlink inside of those groupings at all, Mike?
No. So you're in the. I think like this is where we get into the system, and now we don't really have enough time. There's methodology. Like you need to be being an optimizer. You need to be creating sites and contents and going and getting it up, and then coming back in and analyzing that site and determining if there should be additional groupings other than what you already put out of from like your tool, because there might now become like a category or an entity or topic that you should now group a bunch of those clusters under and have a new hub, or like you have to be you have to flow with what the data says, man. It's optimization. It's not static.
There's going to be different hubs. Like if I have a site, right? Call it like, pet in the pest control space, right? And I've got a link for something like cockroaches, right? And that tool shows me that within this page, as it's optimized, it needs to link back up to this hub. There might be a completely different page where I have the same anchor text linking to a different hub because of the context of that page.
Yeah,
that's important.
And that's why anchors need to be contextual.
And that's why those plugins that just say, hey, here's your on-site interlinking opportunities, don't use those, because those are they're not using enough information to know that you should always link this piece of content to that piece of content.
Well, those kind of plugins and that kind of idea of SEO just messes with it completely ruins the intent of the site and really of the silos. And that's one of the first things I look at, if somebody says that they had a bunch of traffic, they lost traffic, like I'm going to go and check the internal linking structure and see, because a lot of times you'll find exact matches from pages that don't make sense, or just like, hey, by the way, here's something completely unrelated, but I want this page to rank for something. And I've seen a lot of sites that get really screwed up like that, and it only works for Wikipedia, and everybody uses that.
And even Wikipedia is it's not contextual; it's topic based, but Google understands it's a topic based entity, and that's a freaking seed site, so it's not treated the same, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
And really though, like I can see tons of people using tools that should work for them, and they're good for a little while. They're good for a little while, but they drop off, and that's because they're not optimizing. They're not going back in, reanalyzing data, and creating like the connections and the changes on a page that need to be made for that query that page is a part of. So, and this is a good comment. Like those plugins and tools just cater to the lazy, and there are a lot of lazy people, so they sell well. And it's harsh, and I love Clint for being.
Well, that's how your brain is set up, is to find the easiest way to do something naturally. Like it's going to circuit to find that. That's why, like Corey said earlier, we're always on our phones, because you're getting that dopamine drip. That's the quickest route to that dopamine drip, and you're just like feeling that. That's why you have to do the detox at times, but your brain's always going to try and find the easiest way to do something. When you first start doing something, it's clunky and it's hard, but then your brain creates those pathways, and you don't have to think about it. It's trying to preserve energy, so.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, these tools that we're talking about, you still have to use the best tool that you have, which is your brain. I mean, it might not be my best tool, but I try to use it. And that is something that, AI or, some of these tools will never be able to replace. And when you're making your content map, you really have to think ahead. And this is why you get paid the big bucks, is because you are planning that content ahead. you're planning your clusters out, you're getting the content in there, and then you're determining, because then your interlinking structure, I think, is probably top 5 most important ranking factors for a website. And if you get that right, then everything else is just a little power here, some links there, but everything that you do on site is going to really come from your brain. So just use this thing. Don't turn everything over to a tool. Just like Mike said, start with the human.
Unless you're going to send it to me and pay me, then you can turn it over to a tool.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what people miss too is, and some of the stuff we'll be going over because of like the whole how we try to keep everything as cheap as possible and efficient as possible, is like, you don't have to go out and try to be perfect the first time you put the piece of content up. As long as you hit the topics, you hit the interlinking, and you hit some basic points there, you can go back in later and then like fine tune that content and make it work, and work better, I should say. So there's a process. Like all of our campaigns, man, I've got campaigns right now where I'm telling people, just wait, dude. No, we're not going to tweak that yet. We're going to wait a little bit, and then we'll go in and tweak this, and then it will come back up. So like sometimes, as like I watch people do client work, you have to like hold people back because they want to do something at a time when they shouldn't do it. And so don't bother going out and trying to do everything at once, and just get the damn groups up with like the proper shit and the proper headers, and then run and come back in and optimize in another manner. So
yeah, it'd be like trying to get into any game and play the perfect game. Like, oh, you're going to step into the NBA finals, play a perfect game. No.
Don't overthink it.
Like, you got to get used to
play by play, second by second.
And then
I could practice day and night. I don't think I'll ever make it to the NBA finals at this point.
I did.
Yeah.
To watch?
No.
Yeah. He bought
just need an antenna. Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's funny.
Now, my wife knows what time this show is. I have not reached that deadline yet. She's calling. Why?
I got a call too.
Oh,
it's on my calendar, man.
And I can't hear anything when the phone's ringing. I was just looking up and no one was talking.
We hit the time limit, but it's interesting, man. The duplicate content thing for SEO. I think people need to update like the way they think about it. They also need to like look at it from the right angle so they can take advantage of how like cannibalization and pages work and how to optimize delivery of content. So looking at it from that angle, when you start to understand what people need, then you can start to have multiple pages up in the same places and cover your and
like
get your
even
spread
thinking
out there.
about duplicate content. Like, how many times is the word "the" on the internet? It's like billions, right? Okay, so if "the" is not duplicate, it can be used, and then these other groups of 3-word phrases, they're used billions of times. Like, they're thresholds, and these tools that are telling you have duplicate content, they have a potentially arbitrary grouping saying this is the same as it is over there. But if that doesn't play out in the SERPs and what you are trying to avoid, which is based on how a human is engaging with and interacting with that piece of content, then you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, no, and that's why near duplicates are important, man. Like near duplicates, I think, especially internally on the site, when you have Mueller saying like, look, we might use this piece of content from one place and we might rank someone else for it, then you have to sit back and look at, well, why are they ranking it here versus over there if this is the original and they are aware of it? What is making them rank it over here instead of that place? So that's where you have to start thinking, what else are they looking at?
That's why the concept of URL is important. It's unique. There is no duplicate content.
Right.
Because if nothing else, it exists on a different URL. And that is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And if that difference is the advantage, well, then consider why that is the advantage. There is not duplicate content on the internet. I will say that. And
no, there isn't, man.
Tell me how I'm wrong. But a URL means if you go to this URL, you're going to find this piece of content.
I beg to say, like the mission statement of a company can make the same words and copy completely different because of what they are doing around it and what they are doing even, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why they don't just like build user profiles, but they build website profiles. This is why they want to understand EAT and who authors are, because the concepts that a website uses and a person uses to like build their life and their reality influence like everything. So these pieces of content become different. They really do. I agree with that 100%, Fletch. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Later on.